Hi, welcome to Kettering Daily. Today is Thursday, December 10th. I'm Carrie Baston with the Kettering Schools, and we're here at Prass Elementary, and I'm here in Mrs. Cavan's fourth grade class. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you all here. You can't see them, but Mrs. Cavan's class is here with us as well, and we're going to hear from a couple of them a little bit later. But we're going to start by talking a little bit about Prass's Big Read, and that's a big activity that we have here at Prass that really kind of underscores the importance of helping kids learn to be good readers and writers as well. So why don't you give us a little bit of history about how this whole thing started?
Okay, it started for about 4 years ago, and I'm the literacy specialist for our building. And I was having a discussion with Mrs. Dupler, who's our principal, about some kind of activity that we could organize that would tie together all of the students in the building with the teachers through reading and writing. And I knew that some of the other buildings were doing a big read type activity where they were all reading the same book and working through activities. So I suggested that we do that here, and she said, let's do it. So we started our search for the first book, and 4 years later, we're still doing it. But our goal was to put a book in the hands of every student and every teacher in the building, and that's about 420 to 450 people. So obviously, we dealt with funding and those types of issues, but I think we've done a pretty good job with that.
And when you're trying to choose a book, do you talk to the kids? Do you talk to the teachers? How do you decide what book is going to be those 450 books in the hands of the kids?
Right. I do ask the opinion of other teachers, of course, but there are some things that I do look for. I'm looking for first of all, a fun book, because if the kids aren't engaged, they don't want to read it. I'm looking for a book with kid-friendly themes, not too heavy, because this is also a book that needs to be read across grade levels from kindergarten to fifth grade. And we're looking for a book with challenging vocabulary so that we can learn from it through well-planned lessons and activities based on standards, so that we have a culminating project at the end that we share at a literacy fair.
And talk a little bit about why it is so important to kind of infuse literacy and good writing habits and skills in students, as young as our kindergartners all the way up to our fifth graders here.
Yes. This is vital when we start to talk about not just Common Core standards, but keeping rigor in our instruction. And that is constantly raising the bar for kids and challenging them to think a little deeper and a little more highly about what they're reading, and learning how to write about what they're reading. And we talk a lot about careers, like we did when you came in, things that they might be doing in their future. So these are important skills for middle school, high school, and moving on into adulthood. It's communication.
And do you feel like kids kind of understand how this all ties together? Or as teachers, how do you try to do that so that they understand, it's not just reading a book
Right.
or writing, a story, but it's something that they're going to be able to apply? How do you kind of
Right.
teach that? To
It's
kids?
all about communication, and this group especially, they can talk to you about how we collaborate as a class and in groups, and have discussions about what we're doing and why it is so important. And they're smart kids; they understand.
Absolutely.
They get it.
They look like a big smart bunch.
They are.
And you mentioned kind of the literacy fair and how this all kind of leads up to that. Talk a little bit about what that is.
When we finish reading the book, we read it all across the building, and of course in the primary grades it's more of a read aloud for the little kids, and then the intermediate teachers will use it how they see fit. But we all use things from our own standards, whether it's like this year my kids studied theme with our book, and we practiced opinion writing. They wrote book reviews, and we tie all of that together, and at the end we set a date for when the book's to be finished, and we have a literacy fair is what we call it, and teachers all across the building post their work, whether they're book reviews or some type of visual project that they've created, and then we take the kids through the building so that they can see the projects and appreciate what everyone else in the building has done.
Get a chance to see what their peers
Yeah.
are doing across
Younger
class.
and older.
And speaking of that, I know that you have some of your kids who'd like to share some of the work that they have been doing as part of their big read. And I guess we probably should mention the book that they're reading.
Yes. This year we read Stuart Little, which Shelby's holding up her copy there. We read Stuart Little. The first year we read different versions of Cinderella, and the second year we read My Father's Dragon, which that year I was looking for something that nobody had read, and it was a hit. And then last year Charlotte's Web, and this year Stuart Little.
So
And
why
they
don't we
did.
talk to a couple of the kids
Sure.
about some of the ways they've gotten involved and some of the things they're doing to kind of make this a meaningful
Okay.
event.
Let's talk to, do you want me to walk over that way or just talk
That'd
from
be
here?
fine, yeah.
Okay. I don't trip over your cord. Okay, over here we have Emma and we have Elena. And actually, all of you at this table, I'd like to ask you, what do you like best about the big read? Any one of you can answer. Elena?
I like going around looking at the projects to see what everyone did.
Okay. Anything else? Emma?
I like going together and like seeing all the other people's ideas in the class.
Okay. And let me ask over here. Why do you think having a big read and a literacy fair is important? Why is that an important thing?
Because we can share our ideas about the book and learn new things.
Okay. What else? Kira?
So that everyone feels like they're involved and not just I'm learning and that's dumb.
Okay. Shelby?
By learning vocabulary through a fun way.
Good. Good answer, Shelby. Good answer. Okay. Let's see. What's another one? What is something that you learned this year with our big read? Something that you learned this year during our big read.
I learned new words, big words that I've never heard before.
Okay. Anything else? And do you think we should keep doing the big read, and why? This is fun. This is like being a reporter.
I think we should do the big read again because I like reading and I like to read books and I think I like learning new words.
Okay. And what did you guys think about how we tied the writing into the book?
I liked how we tied the writing into it because it helps us get better at writing. So it's not just reading.
Okay. All right, good. And let's have a few of them read their book reports or they did book reviews actually because in 4th grade we study opinion writing. Okay?
Okay, here's mine. Stuart Little's a mouse that was born to a human family. Stuart wasn't sad or mad. He liked his home. One problem was that they had a cat named Snowball who likes to eat mice. Also, Stuart liked to go on adventures. One adventure Stuart went on is when Stuart went down the drain to find a ring. One thing that was not so good about the story is that the author did not use that much detail in the story. Example, when the author says Stuart went on a boat, what kind of boat was it? Was it a blue boat or a green boat? Also, I think the chapter should be a little longer because they are like 5 pages long. One last thing is that the book has a lot of big words. I would recommend this book if you are 9 and up. Also, if you like adventures, you will like this book. And if you like mice, you also might like it if you can read big and unfamiliar words. Last, if you like animals, you will like this book. So get up and get a copy of Stuart Little.
Very good. Thank you. Do you want more? I think we can do one more. Okay, Elena?
My review on Stuart Little. This book is about a mouse named Stuart that is born to a human family. Stuart goes on many adventures. I have 2 favorite adventures. My first one is when Stuart goes on a date with Harriet Ames. My second one is when Stuart goes on an adventure to find Margot the bird. The great thing about the book is that Stuart goes on an adventure to find his friend Margot. A not so great thing was that Stuart likes to brag a lot. I think that E.B. White could do better because in this book, Stuart wants everyone to think that he is perfect and he likes to talk about himself. I think 1st through 5th should read this book because it might be a little challenging for kindergarten and a little too easy for 6th grade. My favorite part is when Stuart teaches the classroom. My other favorite part is when Stuart tries to find the invisible car. I think this book is an amazing children's book.
Okay, thank you, Elena.
That was wonderful, Elena. Actually, you guys did a great job. And what's your first name, honey?
Mason.
Mason, that was a great job. Thank you so much, guys. That was wonderful. And Mrs. Cavan, thank you. We're actually going to go next door to Mrs. Gouget's class and get kind of a twist on how they thought the book ended and how they decided that they might like to change that a little bit. So we're going to go talk to our 4th graders as well. So thank you guys so much, or 5th graders, I'm sorry, 5th graders. Thank you guys so much for letting us spend a couple minutes in your classroom. Thank you, Mrs. Cavan. Really appreciate all the wonderful information. And good luck with the rest of your big read. And I hope you guys have a great winter break, okay? Hi, we just came from Mrs. Cavan's class where we learned a little bit about the Big Read and we got to hear some of their book reviews. And now we are here in Mrs. Gouget's 5th grade class. And your language arts students actually had a little bit of a twist on how they viewed Stuart Little, and they kind of decided they weren't sure they liked the end of the book. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we talked about how some stories don't really have an ending, and that's where the 5th graders really kind of their creativity came into play, because we talked about how a book ends openly, and they wanted to know where the sequel was because so many of the books that they read have a sequel. And I said, guess what? You get to create your own what happens when Stuart is looking for Margalo. So they got very excited about being able to write about what they think happened or should happen in a book that maybe you don't like the ending or the ending isn't very clear to you. And I think it was really great to see how 5th graders understood that they could create their own, where they're making that picture in their mind of what's happening in the book, and that just because a book ends doesn't mean that the story has to end for them. So it was really exciting to see them kind of come to that realization, especially as they get to be older readers and reading more of the kind of the tween or teen books that are series, that it doesn't have to be the ending necessarily, or you don't have to agree with what the author says, that you can be a creative author yourself. All right.
And I think it's so neat that you also had your kids kind of take it a step further, and their project, per se, was to create a film. And talk a little about that, including the interesting part that you said in terms of having to explain to them what film reels used to look like.
So I thought this was going to be a wonderful, kind of a cute activity. Oh, we're going to do a film, like a movie, and so I was all excited about showing it to them. I said, "Oh, we're going to create, we've got the film, and here's the film reel." And they're looking at me like, "What is a film reel?" And I said, well, in the olden days, that's how they used to, thread the machine, and the machine would read each picture. So we kind of had to go back to how film was still pictures, and how the background, this is how it was thread through, and that they wrote on they wrote for every picture. And so it was just an interesting kind of history lesson with the kids and the history of film. So that was kind of a little side lesson that I wasn't planning
And then you said
having to teach.
Each group kind of. did
They
a
were
chapter.
in groups, and then they each had a chapter, and they had to discuss what they thought was the important part of each chapter. And then they created their own picture, so that they created the film of Stuart Little as you go down the hallway. So that was pretty fun, and there was a lot of kind of give and take with what they needed to include in their picture.
And your 5th graders become a little more discerning readers, as you kind of alluded
Absolutely.
to. Why is it so important that you infuse that literature and that writing and creativity with kids as they get a little bit older?
Because I think sometimes they lose kind of the passion for the literature, and so if we can really ignite that fire in them, it's going to carry over to, you are a discerning reader, you are a discerning writer, and you can create and critique and decide what it is that you like, because there's something out there for everybody to read, and just find that passion for them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mrs. Gouget. I really appreciate it. Sounds like your kids did a great job. And yeah, absolutely. And good luck with the big literacy night, and that'll be great for your kids as well. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us in Kettering Daily. If you have any questions about anything we talked about today, you can always contact me at 499-1458 or at Carrie, Kari.Basson, Basson, at ketteringschools.org. We're always happy to hear from you, and we'll see you next week on Kettering Daily.